So we are back with another video against 6.0 DUPR Pro Erik Forsythe. You can see him here on the screen. I've got my cursor over him. Now this game was from last night. My partner here, Richard, he was the one that was recording this game actually. I noticed that after the fact I asked him for the tape. So thanks to him, we do have a tape of this game. This was the very last game of the session. This was like a 4.5 open play that was going on. This was the only time I had a chance to play against him that night, and this was essentially the last game of the night as well. So yeah, so that's me over here. Then we have Richard, we have Eric, and then my friend Sean is playing alongside him. Now, trigger warning for those of you that are looking for rallies that are going to be of a lot of things. That's not really going to be happening in this game, but I'm still going to try to pull a few things here or there that I feel like we can learn from the situation. And on top of that, I'm also going to be criticizing my own play. Let's get going. So let's see. Okay, so we can learn something right off the bat here. Now, in my previous video, which I'm going to show you the thumbnail right here, I spoke about that when you play against Eric, what I noticed that doesn't really happen on my level is these little bit unexpected shots that don't look that great on face value, but they really are effective. So right here, I believe this is where it happens, right? So Sean dinks the ball over to Richard. It's a pretty good dink. Richard has to dink in front of him. And we have Eric taking this ball. Now, most players, including myself, we would normally take this and either dink across court or try to go down the middle, let's say, or into the body. Eric takes this ball, and if we try to pull back a little bit more again, and I could try and see if I can actually freeze frame it a little bit better, you can see he's meeting this ball below the net, right? So not exactly a spot where you'd want to speed up for the most part, right? But he takes that ball from below the net and aims at the left-hand shoulder of Richard, which catches him off guard. We discussed this in the previous video. Again, at face value, it doesn't seem like a great shot. He's speeding up a ball from below the net. The ball's pretty high up at the opponent, right? It's literally at shoulder level here. But because it's surprising, Richard has bad response to it. I mean, he dumps it in the middle, bottom of the net because of how unexpected that was, right? So again, it was just unexpected. So they get the ball back. Let's see what happens. Okay, he just overshot that a little bit. Okay, so you'll notice a few times this game, we end up losing because of a little bit of confusion between my partner and myself. I think Richard is kind of expecting me to be holding middle, and I'm just so used to the left-hand person holding middle most of the time, unless I'm like way ahead of them. But because he's actually giving me the middle, you can kind of see the difference between him and myself. There's moments like this where I'm catching the ball late because I'm expecting my partner to step forward and take that off the forehand wing. And last moment, I'm seeing that not happening, and I'm just putting my paddle out there, and ultimately it's not a great shot, which is what happens here. You see that I was simply the backup in the back of my head here. This is something I should have just kind of spoken to Richard about ahead of time, and just made sure that he's comfortable taking that middle, because I was just essentially just kind of playing as I normally would, and I wasn't thinking much about it. But had I been more cognizant of the fact that he's going to give me the middle, then I would be more alert in those situations. So okay, here we go. I return the ball. Return is fine. It's okay. So I win this point. Now, this also doesn't seem that great, right? Now, this shot right here, off a drop, I normally, very early in the game, I like taking this right down the line to the person's backhand, even when it's not a great shot. And why I normally do this is I want to establish the idea with the person in front of me that if I have that forehand available, I'm always going to be going to that backhand down the line, because I want them to start moving back over to the line as much as I can, because if they're covering the line, they're not going to be covering middle. That's my train of thought. So usually when I'm playing against any team, I'm always trying to attack that backhand on my right-hand side, their left-hand side, to kind of get them to be scooted over. Because I can normally hit this ball down the line or into the middle using about the same technique, so I could hide the shot pretty well, which is why I kind of want them to be scooted over. You know, in this case, this is a bit of a gimme by Sean here. He could have obviously punished me because the ball was a little higher than I should have normally left it, but that's okay. But you'll see how that already will start paying off dividends soon enough. That was a good drive. Okay, so let's look at this. Let's look at this. Okay, so that's a great drive by him, not a great block by me. Okay, so right here, right? Very similar situation to the last point here, where I get a drop. I have a couple options. In most cases, probably the best thing for me to do is dink the ball. But we're going to discuss a little later why I have struggles with that. I'll let the ball come up a little bit. Now, let's pay attention to Sean here. What is he going to be doing in this situation? Notice that he's in a position to actually block the ball. He puts the paddle out in front of him just as the ball is leaving my paddle, while the ball is nowhere near his paddle. He's ready for me to go down the line. I just went down the line at him. Now, see, this is, if you have a coach on the sidelines, they would be able to see this and they'll be able to tell me, hey, listen, next time, instead of aiming towards the middle further out as I did, I can kind of go a little tighter towards Sean, because had I done that, he wouldn't be able to intercept that ball because he's so planted on that backhand at this point. But we do have Erik reacting to it, a great deflection, and you know, it ends up being that wasn't that great of a speed up by me because Erik was on top of that. Almost same confusion there, I would have to say, right? Like, who was grabbing the middle? I kind of went for it finally, but he went for it, but it's okay. Great drive. All right, great put away. Good serve. It's a great drop. Great reset. And then Sean has a fantastic lob. I mean, there was no spin or anything on that lob, but he just absolutely aced it. I think we're still down 0-4 at the moment. Ooh, might have been a bad bounce there, wasn't too sure. Okay. Alrighty, so I had some good defense at the very end. Obviously, that was luck, you know, for me to hit that angle as well as I did, but we can actually go back and we will notice this once again. Where is it? Right there, okay? I posed it perfectly, actually. You can see that same exact shot that Erik is milking. He does it even better because if you pay attention to his paddle, for the most part, you're almost fooled that he's going towards, he's going to curl it towards me or towards the middle, but then he inverts his wrist the very last second and again catches Richard on his backhand wing all the way at the shoulder. It doesn't even matter because it's such a rarity of a shot to be seeing, for us at least, that, you know, he just, instead of dumping it at the bottom of the net, he ends up deflecting it upwards. And again, we just got a little bit lucky here of how the rest of the point played out. But that's twice already Erik's essentially successfully been able to employ that little tactic there. Good serve. Alrighty, there's a mistake by me. So this is a bad tendency that I have, which is on a shorter ball here. It's a pretty short ball, relatively high, I'd have to say. I've got to drive this towards the person running to the non-volley zone, not at the person ready for it. I mean, look at Sean. He's got his paddle out. He's got his backhand out. Like, he's ready for this. There's no way for me to get enough action on this backhand to knock Sean off balance. And I get punished right away because he's ready for it. All right, so as we play this here, no. And I think I misstepped, or I kind of didn't quite see where the ball is, but you can kind of see how it's just under my paddle there. So just a great block by him, but it was expected. I've played a bunch of games with Sean in the past month. He obviously knows my patterns. That is one of my patterns, my drive my backhand down the line on the deuce side. So here we finally start getting some points on our serves. We get a couple loose errors from them. As I normally say, when it rains, it pours. We've gone from 0-4 to, I believe, about 3-4 now. And unfortunately, I clipped the very top of that net, went for a little bit too good of a drop. There was no need for that. Another great drive by Sean. Okay, obviously that was a mishit by me. If we try and see what exactly happened here, so Sean comes over. Erik comes over to cover that forehand completely. Relatively simple drive, but obviously good power. And yeah, honestly, it's just a complete mishit. It's not much more about it. Yeah, it's not much more about that. I wanted to see if there's anything fancy there, but, you know, just good serve, relatively poor return, and just drives the middle. A little bit of a sloppy point there. Got caught off balance for a split second. It's a good serve. It's a good drop reset by me. He just goes for a little bit too much. This is something that I have to work on in my game. Normally when I'm stuck in these backhand dinks, I end up aiming for the same spot. I end up trying to drive them off the court for the most part, instead of moving them. And normally I would go into the middle if I'm really pushed off myself, but I do have to work on trying to move them back and forth here, instead of just consistently. I'm relatively consistent on that backhand wing, but it's more or less to kind of drive them off the court. Okay, that was a good follow-up. Again, same confusion there, right? So if we back it up a little bit, right, we should be in an advantageous position here. I mean, Sean is hitting the ball from pretty far below, but I'm coming forward this way. Richard's coming straight forward. There's really no one moving towards that middle. And again, we should have communicated going into this game. That shouldn't be happening, obviously. Okay, so very similar to a few points ago, right, where there's a short backhand. Sean isn't exactly the same position. He's got his paddle out in front waiting for that backhand block. I learned from my previous mistake. I end up going towards Erik here. Decent drive, nothing wrong with it, right? I'm catching Erik a few feet behind. Sean, the ball is dipping below the net. So not a bad drive. We're both moving towards the net ourselves. So overall, as a play, everything's looking good. Let's see. We probably get a little too passive there. And then his counter after that was a little too strong. So one of my typical patterns there that we saw in the very beginning, which was right here, where I first begin by going into the middle to try to keep the person in the back at the back as much as I can. Inside out, pull the left-handed player away from the middle. Here I try to go back towards the middle as I'm trying to open it up. Sean kind of reached it, hit it. Relatively weak volley by me, but at least I keep it down. But then a good finishing volley at the very end. So that was pretty well played. It's a strong one-handed drive there. Great drop. Okay, so that's great. That was great. So here is where I get fooled. That is where I get fooled. So as Erik is coming up here, I remember this in real time. He's positioning himself up as he's just gonna be dinking it cross court. His shoulders are squared with Richard for the most part, right? His legs are even. His paddle was going into this. So I was expecting him just to dink it. But because he lets that ball come in way closer into his pocket, that gives him the opportunity to still use that kind of like open face that's pointing towards Richard to essentially come around it and whip it towards me. And he does it strictly with his arm, right? Doesn't really use his shoulder there, which is really important. So again, just pay attention to how he does it with his arm. Right? Just a little flick. Now, the reason why that matters is because the less of your body that you use for situations like that, the less intel I have to react to quicker. If I saw his shoulder, if he was hitting a regular, let's say, speed up where people use the whole shoulder and they're coming across their body, well, if I'm looking at your body and I see your shoulder all of a sudden going from this position to going towards me, pointing towards me, I'll be reacting to that because obviously that means the ball is coming towards me. But if you have a smaller piece of your body, which is, let's say, just the forearm, flicking going towards me, it's easier for me to miss that or not see that as I would if your whole shoulder or if your whole torso was rotating towards me, right? So the fact that he kind of kept his torso and his shoulders aligned towards Richard, but got his arm flicked towards me, gave me less time to react to that ball, and I completely missed it because of that. So that's a good little learning lesson. I mean, plus he essentially faked me out that he was first going there. He kept it like that and only used his forearm to change the direction there, right? And that's it. You can see that's all the flick he used to get that ball, and you can see how late I actually am on that reaction there, right? Extremely late. That ball is already past that net, and I'm not even in close position to even get my paddle out, right? And it's not just getting my paddle out, it's also having a good shot. You see me trying to kind of like flick my wrist and do something with it, you know. if I just put my paddle out there, it's going to be put away, obviously. It's a big serve. So again, nothing particularly wrong there. I would say, you know, most nights, you know, 9 out of 10 times Richard is putting that ball away. And in this situation, I think it was just Erik with a great shot once again. So the ball is low, right? I'm not really driving this ball. I'm putting a little bit of pace on it, going cross court with it. Erik is catching this really low, and he speeds it up again from that position, using just his arm here, right into the body of Richard. And Richard overshoots it again. The fact that he was just able to get that much pace, get great clearance over the net from that lower position on the run, speaks more to his ability. There's that same little through the middle flick that I like to do in that position. That worked pretty well. And again, that might be working well because of the fact that I have Sean pulled off a little bit, right? So if we look there, if I have Sean pulled off, we're gonna look at this point once again. Oh, was it this point? We might have missed it. I have to back it up a little bit. Yeah, I just want to see what Sean's position was. Right, so here we are. Yeah, Sean is all the way off to the side here, again, trying to protect that line. He's played against me enough times to know that I do like to go to that line if I see my opponent in front of me trying to cover middle again. And I use that to, look how massive of a distance there is between the two of them, you know? And again, even though Erik's a massive guy himself, it's still tough, obviously, to cover all that gap. And it's a good spot, with good spin and all. I will say this much, what I would change is that I have to also incorporate going just more regular cross-court dinks. It's not going to take long for Erik to pick up on the fact that that's one of my go-to shots on my right-hand side. And he's going to start covering more of that and less of the outside of the court. So I should get him pulled off to the outside every now and then as well. Again, a little bit of an overshoot. Again, most nights we're just killing that shot, so it's all good. That was just good by Erik. Just wasn't in the right position for it. And we're still kind of stuck in that hole, like who's covering middle, you know, that's catching me off guard still. So it's a good think over there. Yeah, so he got me beat there. We back it up just a little bit, see how it went. I think with the first volley, I was in the better position, but I quickly lost that advantage, right? So Erik's going for the drive here, right to the middle. I'm covering it, I hit it. It's a good volley, right down to the feet. He picks it up, deflects it very well. This one catches me essentially in the chicken wing here. I'm out of position. I try to disengage by going to Sean. Erik's very quick to see that. And again, the guy's like, 6'3". Easily makes one step, reaches over, and just punishes us. Just well played by him. Again, I'm covering kind of middle there. It's just a tough situation, right? I should have been taken out of my forehand side. especially because so much of the court was available there. If I would have just been maybe holding forehand, and if it was going to go to my backhand, let Richard grab that of his forehand, that would have been the right play. But because we still had that middle confusion going on, it might have cost us that point. That was a good block. That's a great thing. That's one of my favorite backhands to hit. Reaching over there. Run right back down the line. Just kind of reassert that. Make sure, you know, that that Sean kind of stays on top of defending that line, moving forward. Might have been just a little bit of a bad bounce there. So again, notice I'm thinking to the same spot for the most part. Normally when I'm in this, I'm just waiting for them to give me a ball that's somewhat attackable out of the air. But I would have an easier job making that happen if I were to move them, obviously. But here I try to do a two-handed speed up, and unfortunately there was a net court involved here. Now, if we try to slow this down and see how all this transpired, whether or not that speed up was a good speed up or not. So this is still, I'm slicing it. So that's my, so let's, what is this, 23? Let's stop right here. So I'm about to speed this up. Erik's position has not changed. Still standing extremely nonchalant, like nothing's going to be happening, which is good. That's telling me that, okay, maybe I'm doing a decent job with this particular speed up in terms of not making it too obvious ahead of time. Because had I been more obvious, he would likely have his paddle out in front of him, right? Facing me already. Notice that as I'm actually hitting it, he starts to move his paddle, right? So notice, he's moving his paddle. So he's realizing at this point I'm speeding up at him, likely because he's following my shoulders. So this is something I have to fix, because here's an issue with me slicing my dinks and speeding up with a two-hander. Because when I'm slicing my dinks, my left shoulder, I think it's here, is staying back. Notice that. My left shoulder's there, my right shoulder's here, right? They're kind of spreading away from one another. That's how normally my dinks look like, right? Notice my left shoulder is just kind of staying apart. But when I'm speeding it up, first of all, I'm bringing my shoulders together, but that's a two-handed backhand. Okay, maybe I can dink two-hander, but because they're quickly moving together, and I'm leading with the left, because normally you can be leading aggressively with the left shoulder when you're using a backhand speed up. He can pick up on that, especially because I'm not using that in my regular dinks. But even then, I have a little circle of death here. But even then, it catches him off guard because he does pop up the ball, right? He does pop the ball up here, where if maybe I did not stumble over my own feet, I would have been able to do more of it, right? I'm kind of on top of that ball, as you can see, but I'm off balance. I'm literally falling backwards here. I'm not able to generate enough power. I do bring the ball down, which is good, but then net court comes about. So in general, the speed up, not that bad. It's not like he was on top of it. It's not like he punished me right off the bat. If my footwork was a little cleaner, maybe I could have finished it. Just a good put away. Yeah, and that was just my mistake here. I think, you know, once that ball hit the net court, I just went for a Hail Mary here. Where was it? I mean, It was not this one. I think the point was going pretty fine, right, for the most part. Yeah, right there. I thought he might be hitting it, but I was still covering it. But then I, off my own back foot, went cross court, speed up. None of that makes sense, obviously, and it was going to go out probably, and we just lose the point on that. But that's basically it. We lost the match. I think it was like 11-8 or so. But it was a fun game either way. Had a good time. There's still stuff I was able to learn just from this game, even though some of the points were not that long. Normally, I show you guys just a compilation of good points in a match, so just kind of worth watching. This time I showed you guys every single point, just so you get a better idea of how everything goes down. If you have your own critique of my game, of anyone else's game, you can kind of leave it in the comments below. I hope to have similar videos, or maybe I cover my full gameplay in live like this in the future. Let me know if you guys like this, whether it's helpful or not. But other than that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys out there.